Today, we are going to be covering the box office report, Oppenheimer's box office milestone, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom trailer, Barbie's screenplay submission at the Oscars, the best film trilogies of all time, Lando Calrissian's Disney Plus series to be a feature film, and for our grand finale, we'll finish off with our predictions for best original and adapted screenplay at the Oscars. Alright people, welcome to another exciting episode of Let's Be Real. I'm your host James, and I am not joined by anyone today. That's right, it is just me. Really sorry to you guys. You guys are going to have to put up with me for a little bit of time here. No, I'm not going to talk for a good hour and a half. My voice will be really bad by the end of that. So don't expect, a classic 90-minute episode this time. We'll probably be making out around 45 to an hour. We'll see how my voice really goes, but got some water here and I'm good to go. Before I do dive into the action on this episode, we do want to hear from you guys. So slide into our DMs on Twitter with your suggestions or topics you'd like us to cover, and we might cover it on the show here. Now, we're also trying to do good things on YouTube as well, so do come over, support us, subscribe to the channel, and support our endeavor to get onto video podcasting. And for everything else that we do here, head over to MovieGainz.com, which is your go-to source for box office predictions, movie reviews, physical media coverage, and a whole lot more. You can find all the links to this in the description below. All right, so without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so the box office report for the weekend. So at number one for the weekend, we got The Nun 2 at 14.7 million. That dropped 55% for 56.5 million total. At number two, A Haunting in Venice, that debuts with 14.5 million. At number three, you got The Equalizer 3, which had 7.2 million. That dropped 40% for 73.7 million. At number four, you got My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3 at 4.7 million. That dropped 53% for 18.6 million. And at number five, you got Barbie at number five, 3.96 million, dropping 30%. And now it has 626.1 million total. So the key takeaways from here are The Haunting in Venice, that didn't get number one. The Nun 2 in its second weekend beat it. Mind you, these are still estimates, so by the time the actuals come out, we could see a swapping here. But A Haunting in Venice, that's the third film in the Kenneth Branagh, Hercule Poirot's franchise based on the Agatha Christie books, and we know that The Murder on the Orient Express, that did quite well. I think it opened to around 28 point something million, and so this is about half of that. It does debut a little bit above Death on the Nile, but that one was handicapped due to more COVID restrictions and stuff in that time period. So this is quite disappointing. It's probably because it really switched tones into more of the thriller and horror kind of vibes, and also dropping it straight after The Nun 2, which is in the Conjuring universe, which is a popular horror series. I don't know why they would drop this movie the week after that. But The Nun 2, that dropped far better than I would have predicted. I was expecting around 65%, not 55%. And that was due to Haunting in Venice kind of taking a bit of that market there. And also, I think with the Nun 2, it wasn't really received well. I think it's around 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the cinema score was poor, so I just thought people would go see it first week and then drop out. But it's that September time, you got all these sequels to, kind of your low to mid-tier franchises that it's not much interesting happening in the box office right now. Barbie at 3.96 million, it's been in the top five ever since its debut, and it's at 626 million. I think that movie is really slowing down now. It won't get to 650, but it will keep pushing to around the 640 mark or so. Equalizer 3, I think, is the one that stands out amongst everything here in the September franchise time. 73.7 million. I don't think it has the steam to really go all the way through to 100 million, but it's dropping steadily. It's done pretty well so far. what comes next? It's still pretty quiet, but it is going to start to ramp up in October. You obviously got the Taylor Swift Eras Tour movie. That one's going to be one of the most interesting box office stories, I think, potentially ever. Genuinely, it is. We've covered it here before. It's a concert film. It has, I think, over $65 million dollars already in just pre-sales, which is one of the biggest in history. And it is a concert movie. And the biggest concert movie is, I think it's Justin Bieber's Never Say Never, which was around 73 million, or in that low 70 million mark. So I think the Taylor Swift Eras movie is going to beat that just in pre-sales along as we build up to that release. You know, obviously with Dune leaving, it does empty the marketplace a little bit, but yeah, I think it's still going to be quite a big last quarter of the year, and we just got to get through this slow September, which is currently happening. Yeah. Talking about box office though, and talking about one that's connected to the Barbie movie, it's Oppenheimer. You know, the Barbenheimer phenomenon. Oppenheimer I think Oppenheimer is more surprising and more impressive than what Barbie's done. I know that might be a hot take because Barbie's like the highest grossing film of the year. It opened to like 166 million. It's at like 1.3 or 1.4 billion dollars now. So people think it's a hot take, but I always expected Barbie to do well, to be big. And I think about a few weeks, before Barbie's release, I said it was going to be $1 billion movie. And no one believed me. But hey, look where we are now. It massively exceeded it. And Barbie is surprising. There's no doubt about it. To get to over 600 million domestically, it's huge. Oppenheimer, to me though, that is the more impressive one. Because with Oppenheimer, a lot of people, you know, they cope with this whole Oppenheimer box office success by saying, oh, Christopher Nolan, oh, good cast. It's a lot more than that. We've seen, you know, a big director and big cast all the time that struggle to make good money, just because of the subject matter, the marketing, all those kind of factors. But anyway, Oppenheimer, that's crossed 912 million at the worldwide box office. 912 million. By the way, this is exceeding Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. It's exceeding Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It's exceeding The Little Mermaid. All of these big movies and ones that we thought had a good chance at being the best or biggest movie of the year, it's beaten that. I know it's beaten Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. You combine The Flash and Mission Impossible's total gross together worldwide, Oppenheimer beats both of them combined. That's how impressive this is. So now it's at 912 million at the worldwide box office. It's now the highest grossing biopic movie of all time, passing Bohemian Rhapsody. It continues to surprise. It continues to be more impressive. And the reason for this is, like, Bohemian Rhapsody, it's based on Queen and Freddie Mercury, which, you know, the Queen's one of the best-selling musical artists of all time. The band is, I think, they're at least in the top 10. And they're iconic. Their songs are iconic. You know, everyone loved Bohemian Rhapsody when it came out. It got a ton of Oscar buzz as well. So, yeah, to compare that to Oppenheimer, Robert Oppenheimer, who was involved with the planning and creation of the atomic bomb, it's a very different thing. Robert Oppenheimer, I don't know how many people would know him prior to this movie, but it would surely be below Queen, and at least perhaps that could be wrong. But if we look at general interest levels, people are more interested in Queen than they are in Robert Oppenheimer. I think that's a pretty safe thing to say. That's pretty accurate there. And so for this one to pass it as the biggest biopic of all time, it blows my mind. You know, you're looking at things in retrospect. You know, just over 2 years ago, Universal landed the rights to Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, and that was because of Warner Brothers' decision for the day and date release releasing in cinemas and on HBO Max at the time, called HBO Max, releasing on that the same day. And Nolan is a big advocate for the cinema experience, so he wasn't making his next movie with them. But his demands with Universal were quite high. So his demands were $100 million budget, $100 million marketing, 90 to 120 day theatrical window. So it must be in theaters for 90 to 120 days before going to any streaming service or any kind of physical media release. They needed a 3-week blackout period before and after release. Now, what that means is that 3 weeks before Oppenheimer, Universal could release no movies, nothing. 3 weeks after Oppenheimer's release, nothing as well. And then from the final, Nolan also wanted to be a part of the final cut of the film and to have 20% first dollar gross. And so these are massive demands. I have not seen demands like this from a director ever, just because it covers so much different things. It's demanding that the studio doesn't release things at a certain time, something that Nolan shouldn't have any control over. It's controlling budget, marketing, how long it's in theaters, and how much he gets paid. But I don't think Universal are complaining, because now they got a $900 million box office movie, and that's $200 million if you include the production budget and marketing. So the profits from this are amazing. It's going to be so good. And at 20% of the box office, I mean, what would that's $180 million for Nolan himself. Yeah. Oh, he's balling right now. But fair enough, he makes some of the best movies that we have. Just incredible what Oppenheimer's done. As for where its final gross is going to be, might be able to stretch it out to 950. I think you're going to be looking between 940 and 950 by the final thing of this. If they want to do like a exclusive IMAX week or something like that, then I could see a little bit of a boost. But I think $1 billion is out of reach at this time. I at one point thought that Oppenheimer might get to $1 billion, but the China release, while the pre-sales were good, it hasn't translated to the best performance. It's had a very good performance for a Hollywood release since COVID, but yeah, it's dropping pretty radically over there. All right. Next one we got, which will be another interesting box office story, but that is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom trailer. So yeah, the trailer released. The film itself, I have no idea what this movie is going to do, what it's going to be. If we are talking box office right now, yeah, I honestly have no clue. What we can see from the trailer though, now the trailer, I don't think it was very disappointing, or it doesn't quite translate to what we've heard behind the scenes. And, there is a lot behind the scenes. We've heard that, the test screenings have been absolutely awful. And I forgot the precise details, but it was along the lines of that the test screenings were so awful, they demanded that the entire film be recut and kind of re-edited. And then the next test screening for that cut was even worse. And they're just kind of going back and forth. It's had its delays. You've had Ben Affleck a part of it at one point, and then you have Michael Keaton a part of it at one point. They have no idea what they're doing. I do feel bad for James Wan, because what they did with the first one, I think it was completely satisfying. I left that movie and I was satisfied with the movie. I think it's completely fun. It really fit the tone that it was trying to do, and it had its heart in the right place as well. I think the first one did it right, and so if the movie comes anywhere close to that, then I think it's going to be okay. But then you go to all these production issues. It's on its like third round of reshoots now here in New Zealand. So yeah, I have no idea where they're going, what they're going with it, but the trailer itself, it doesn't present a movie where it's had all this stuff happen. I mean, and let's not forget the Amber Heard controversy. Whatever way you feel about that whole situation, that does play a part in this, and it does play a part into general audiences' interest. And we'll see how relevant her film Mirror is in the film. But she was only marketed in this trailer. I think it was just like one shot from memory. But yeah, the trailer doesn't reflect a horrible production behind the scenes. I think the visuals are very reminiscent of the first one. It's kind of it's just got all these different sets, and the production design looks pretty good. Visually, you're going to get something better than The Flash, so that's already a win there. Now, I don't know how the story really plays out, but I guess it's with Black Manta fully coming into it now, and yeah, I don't really know much else of what to say for this, because let's say we hadn't heard all this test screening and production issues stuff, and I'd seen this trailer, and all I had known about this movie was that it was coming out and it was a sequel to the first one. I think watching this trailer, I'd be pretty excited. Not because I'm going to get, a masterpiece or anything like that, but just because it's another fun 2 hours at the movies where you can, have a good drink and just enjoy yourself and kind of get lost in its world. So, yeah, I will base or my excitement on what I can see and what actual evidence is out there to support these kind of claims. I've heard stuff as well. There was a movie insider or a studio insider, I should say, and he was quote retweeting a tweet that was saying, like something about how Aquaman Lost Kingdom is going to be a surprise, or it looks good and stuff like that. And yeah, so what this insider was saying is that I laugh at these tweets because I've seen this movie after the reshoots, and people are not prepared for how fucking boring this movie is going to be. And he swore to add emphasis to what he was trying to say. And so, you have such an assured opinion like that from an insider, and he's pretty reliable. So yeah, I don't know how it's going to go. It's very fascinating, but based on the trailer, I thought it was good. It'd be very interesting to hear what you guys think about this, because I think most of us have heard all this controversy and all these problems and issues. But yeah, if you've seen the trailer, do let us know. Just jump onto Twitter, flick us a message or something like that. What we'll move on to now is Barbie's screenplay situation, and this one has caused a lot of debates throughout Twitter, I should say. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just having a water break there. My throat is starting to kill me now, and I'm only 18 minutes in, so this is not looking good. If there's a big pause, it means I'm just having a drink. Anyway, back to it. So, Barbie's screenplay submission at the Oscars. So, Warner Brothers confirmed to Variety that the film is going to be campaigned for this year's Academy Awards for Best Original Screenplay. And so the big debate about it is whether this movie is an original screenplay or whether it's an adapted screenplay. So within the writer's branch, a committee determines the eligibility of movies in their submitted categorizations. And it isn't bound to what the WGA decides. And the WGA has said that this movie was labeled as adapted. But we've seen this before. So the movie Moonlight, which won Best Picture, that was campaigned and labeled as original by the WGA because it was based on a play, but the play was never published. So I don't know if that makes sense, but the committee and within the writers' branch moved it to adapted. So yeah, Moonlight is based on a play, but the play was never published. So it was labeled as original by the WGA, and then the committee moved it to adapted. And then Moonlight went on to win that category, went on to win Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Picture, obviously. So at this stage, we don't know whether the Academy is going to officially accept that designation until, the nomination ballots are open for voting, which I believe is scheduled for January 11th in 2024. Damn, we're only 3 months away from 2024, guys. Just let that one sink in for a minute there. Anyway, yeah. So I guess the big question is, what do you think on this? Is this the right move by the Writers Branch Committee here? I'm not too sure, because I think the way it should be looked at is, if anything's based on a previously established IP, intellectual property, it's adapted, because Barbie is, it's an icon. It started as a toy, but it's moved into, TV series and movies before. Barbie's been in stuff like Toy Story. I definitely think it's adapted because it's adapting something into a movie. It's not an original character. I guess the original part of this is that it takes these previously established characters, such as Ken and Barbie, and puts it into a very original screenplay, an original story. We've never seen Barbie like this or in this kind of way. So I guess that is where it's the thinking is by this. I personally have no quarrels with it being in Best Original Screenplay. I think it's perfectly fine and accepted. But I can see why others may gripe with it. I've even seen jokes about how they're doing this intentionally, so Oppenheimer can win Best Adapted and Barbie can win Best Original and Barbenheimer can rule the screenplay category. I've seen stuff like that, and it would be hilarious if that was to happen. I think it's I think this may be more to strategy to get some wins here, or to at least get nominations by Warner Brothers. I would say it's more strategy driven rather than genuinely believing this is an original screenplay. The adapted screenplay category, we're going to get to this soon on my predictions, but the adapted screenplay category is very stacked. I don't know who's going to win that one, but it is very, very dense. I think original screenplay, there is some room for Barbie to kind of make waves. So for Warner Brothers to pivot towards original screenplay, I think that's probably a more strategic choice, and probably the best way where they can try and get wins. I don't know how much where Barbie really stands much of a chance at the Oscars, but I guess now it's going to be in the Best Original Screenplay if the Academy accepts it, and I believe that they will. All right. Oh, sorry, another water break there. These are going to come more regularly. All right. So, my buddy Nayan, who sadly can't join me for this one, so I am going to be reviewing his best film trilogies of all time. Now, recently, I think last week, he posted or wrote up an article on the best film trilogies of all time on MovieGainz.com. And so I've had the chance to review it, to look at it. And I thought, since he's not, going to be healthy enough to make this podcast, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to try and roast him as much as I can. So why not do it with the best film trilogies of all time? All right. So I'll list out what he's got here for you, and then I'll give you my take. Right. So at number 10, he has the Captain America trilogy. At number 9, he has the Cornetto trilogy by Edgar Wright. Number 8, here's How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. Number 7, Back to the Future trilogy. Number 6, Planet of the Apes trilogy, the Matt Reeves one. Number 5, Spider-Man trilogy, the Raimi films. Number 4, is the Before trilogy. Number 3, the Godfather trilogy. Number 2, the Dark Knight trilogy. And number 1, you guessed it, Lord of the Rings trilogy. So those are his ones there. Now, just to clarify, because I did talk to him about it before he'd posted, the original Star Wars trilogy we don't consider that a trilogy. If we did, it would be in here. So that's why it's missing. It's not a trilogy because there are movies after it and before it. It's like saying, Harry Potter 1, 2, and 3 is the child Harry Potter film, so that's an original one. Or it's like saying Toy Story 1 to 3 is a trilogy, but no, there's a fourth one, so it's not. That's just the way we view it. If you want to have the original Star Wars trilogy in this list, by all means, go ahead. Some ones that I thought could make it in there, the Kung Fu Panda trilogy. I believe that they are very good, and I think they've gotten to the point where they're kind of underrated now. The first one is great. The second one is really good, and so is the third one. They do get weaker as they go along, but I definitely think that that they're very good. I think in about what should we say? In about 6 to 7 months, Kung Fu Panda will no longer be considered a trilogy. The fourth one's coming out, so yeah, I guess it's not going to be a trilogy for much longer. So I would have put that in. I don't know where. The Captain America trilogy. I don't know if that should make it. The Cornetto trilogy. I don't actually know if I would consider that a trilogy personally to myself. The films have no connection whatsoever besides the fact that it's called the Cornetto trilogy. It just feels like a filmmaker's set of films rather than a narrative spanning from a beginning to a middle to an end kind of thing. So if I was redoing this list, I would take out the Cornetto trilogy right now. I would put in Kung Fu Panda. Or I'm just wondering if I would put Kung Fu Panda above How to Train Your Dragon. Because I think How to Train Your Dragon has the second film, I think it's a little bit weaker. And I think the first one is actually, the first How to Train Your Dragon is weaker than Kung Fu Panda 1. I think the second one's weaker than Kung Fu Panda 2, but I think the third one is better than Kung Fu Panda 3. They're very close, of course. So I don't have Kung Fu Panda above How to Train Your Dragon at this point in time. Guardians 3. The Guardians trilogy. I would definitely have that in here. I think it is better than Captain America trilogy. I don't like Captain America: The First Avenger. I think it's boring. I know people love it, and that's fine. All credit to you. But I personally, I think it's boring. It's hard to watch, and I don't watch it much because it's hard to get through it. But it does have its qualities, of course. I think Captain America: The Winter Soldier is one of the best Marvel films, and obviously Civil War. I mean, you could credit Civil War towards part of how well the Captain America trilogy is received, or you could take away from it because it doesn't feel like a Captain America exclusive movie. So they kind of turned it. They just labeled an Avengers movie Captain America: Civil War. So I think that does less for how I receive or how I perceive the Captain America trilogy. And so that's why I think Guardians trilogy easily clears that. Now let's look at the list from number 1, Lord of the Rings. I'm not going to judge this. If I had to give one of the hottest takes I have for my opinion on movies, it's that the Lord of the Rings are massively overrated. That's right. It's just my opinion. Please don't freak out. It's just my opinion. You're welcome to disagree with me. I'm happy you disagree with me because I'm happy that you like it, but I find it okay. It's good. They're very, very well made. The acting's exceptional. It's just the story. It's very hard to buy into it. The lore is massive, and I don't think the movies that I just struggled to get really invested in the lore. I think they needed more time to really allow us to get into it. But hey, it's just my opinion. Please don't get mad in the comments. If you have a different opinion, perfectly fine. I'm not going to argue that it's number one. All right. The Dark Knight trilogy. It's hard to say whether it deserves number 2 spot, honestly, because I think we rely too heavily on The Dark Knight, the middle film, which is one of the greatest films of all time, best comic book movie ever. And so we put so much weight into that film while ignoring that Batman Begins is perfectly good, Dark Knight Rises is good, but I think they do lower its case here. But it's at number 2 spot. I'm not gonna be annoyed about that one. Godfather trilogy. Again, this one's a really hard one. The Godfather 3 is not great at all, really. It's not even part of the conversation. But Godfather 1 and 2 are some of the best films of all time. And so how much do we take away from a bad entry into, one of the greatest 2 movies ever? It's tough to really judge that. And how do we even judge these kind of trilogies if one movie can ruin them all, or one movie can make it one of the greatest trilogies ever? It's tough to know. The Before trilogy. This is a trilogy I haven't actually seen. I have seen the first one, but I've been meaning to see it for so long. I might actually just watch that trilogy as often as they released, which is like every 10 years. That'd be a good way to watch it. But no, I've heard amazing stuff about this trilogy, and it's easy to see why it was in the top 5 here at number 4. I've really wanted to watch it because the concept is just, it's so beautiful. It's so like amazing and deeply unique. The one I will absolutely watch as soon as I can. Next at number 5 was Spider-Man, which I think is perfectly fine. I think Spider-Man 3 is overhated. Sure, it's got its flaws, no doubt about it. It's, in fact, there's some parts of that movie that I absolutely hate. But Spider-Man 1 and 2 are very, very good. They do so much for the character, and by the end of this series, Peter Parker is just such a fully formed character, and those movies do such justice to not only Peter Parker but to also Spider-Man. I think it's a very, very good one. Matt Reeves' Planet of the Apes movies. I think it's good in the middle point, but you could even have it a little bit higher. I don't think there's a bad film in those movies, so you could have it above Spider-Man, even contending in the top 3 there, perhaps. Back to the Future. No, I don't agree with it being number 7, just because it's relying too heavily on the first movie, and they get dramatically worse every single time. So yeah, I would not have it this high. It would make the top 10 in my case. So, but yeah, that's basically my thoughts on it. I think Nain's done a good job. Yeah, it's a good list. Trilogies are very, very hard to do because you gotta weigh so much into it. But yeah, it's a good list. But I was trying to think of stuff that he had missed, and he hadn't missed much. So it only shows me that we need better trilogies. But mind you, if they keep making movies which kind of kill the idea of the trilogy, and it's always like 4, 5, 6 movies now. It's never just a trilogy. And perfect example is Toy Story, because I think if Toy Story had not had a 4th movie, that might be number 1. Genuinely. Yeah. It would compete for number 1. In my case, I'll put it above Lord of the Rings. Don't get mad, please. Just my opinion, guys. Just my opinion. All right. I'm going to move on now to the Disney Plus series for Lando Calrissian. Apparently, it's now meant to be a feature film. All right, so in July this year, news broke that Stephen Glover and Donald Glover, they had been tapped by Disney and Lucasfilm is they're going to replace Justin Simeon as the writers for the new Lando television series on Disney Plus. So we've heard about this project since, I think, December 2020. So it's been in development for quite a while. But apparently the project is actually being developed as a Lando movie. And Lucasfilm has confirmed that to Variety. So Stephen Glover, he first dropped this news on an appearance on a podcast, and he told the host it's not even a show, and that the idea is to do a movie. So yeah, I guess they're doing a Lando Calrissian feature film based on Donald Glover's interpretation of the character. And honestly, I don't care. I'm over Star Wars. Not entirely. Like, I haven't even gone around to Ahsoka yet. I get it. Life's busy and stuff. We move fast these days, and there's an overabundance of content now, which makes it hard to keep up with these films, and these series. But it's just Star Wars thrives when it's not being milked. The magic of the franchise is the scarcity of it. I hope that makes sense. Remember Star Wars The Force Awakens? Do you remember the anticipation? Do you remember the midnight screenings? The fan theories? Everything. We don't get that. We don't get that anymore. It's oversaturated. So yeah, I don't care for Star Wars that much anymore. We've seen so much, and there's been disappointments along the way. I would say Obi-Wan Kenobi was a disappointment. The anticipation on that one was pretty high. But yeah. And, we saw the sequel trilogy turn into an abomination. Disney's handling of the Star Wars franchise is poor. It is used to get money. The intention is not to provide the dedicated fans with content that is of high quality. They don't care about that. They care about the fans spending their dollars. And sure, it's a business. I get it. I completely do. But you can do both. So I think my opinion would shift a touch if the stuff that they had been doing was great. If the sequel trilogy was great, then sure. If I can't even remember all the projects that have happened. I know Andor is very good. That's one that I am getting around to watch just because I've heard such great things about it. But stuff like the Mandalorian, that was pretty good. But there's just not much interest in Star Wars for myself when I'm constantly getting stuff about it. And you hear all this news about, the Star Wars movie, this director's writing a Star Wars movie, they're doing this and that. It's just like, how many Star Wars movies have been announced? Like 15? Maybe a bit exaggerated there. Maybe 10. Genuinely, they've announced 10 and nothing's happening. What are they doing? But I don't care for Star Wars to be so milked by this. And as for its movies, they had recently done an announcement on some movies for Star Wars. They were canceling a lot and then came in with a new plan. And one of those was the kind of the Disney Plus series kind of combining together, or having like a big crossover movie, like Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and all that kind of stuff. And then they also had Dawn of the Jedi, which I believe is James Mangold's movie based on The First Jedi, which I think that's a deeply fascinating idea, and having James Mangold, a filmmaker, to get behind the idea and kind of hopefully has some creative control and gives us something good there. That one sounds interesting. And you have I think it's the Jedi Academy, something like that, and it's got Rey in it as well. Now, I thought this was a great direction for Star Wars to move to, because you balance a little bit of nostalgia there, and it pushes the franchise forward. You have proper filmmakers attached. I think that was the direction to go. Having Lando there, sure, it's a bit of nostalgia, but it's a movie that's taking place back in time. And I know what you're going to say, oh, Dawn of the Jedi is, but Dawn of the Jedi is a concept based on the first Jedi. We've not seen anything like that. We've seen Lando before. We've seen Donald Glover's version of Lando. Is it interesting enough for us to care about a movie? I promise you it's not. And the only way they can really that it's actually going to get say a good result at the box office is if it's really good. I just don't see the interest. I don't see why it's being pursued any further than a show, but I guess it's up to Lucasfilm and not me. So yeah, we'll talk about some good stuff now, not Star Wars stuff. Oh, just gotta have some water. All right. So recently on MovieGainz.com, I dropped the predictions for Best Original and Best Adapted Screenplay for the Oscars next year. So I'm going to run through them. I'm going to talk about them a little bit. So for Original Screenplay, now do keep in mind here that these are early predictions. I don't want people to, message me in January and be like, oh, you really thought this one was getting nominated? It's not trending very well. Like, yes, I know. I will update these pages as I go. So do not come back to me and show me that I said this or that. I'm talking about at this stage. On the 18th of September, this is what I thought. Now, we get new information. Award precursors show a lot of what's trending towards the Oscars and all that kind of stuff. So this is all the information that I'm working with now. These are what I think will be nominated in the Oscars. That's what I'm doing right now. When we get new information, I'll take that new information in, and then I will provide an update if there is a relevant update to add. So just keep that in mind. Things can change, and they can change very fast, very dramatically for the Oscars. But I'm really excited for these Oscars. They're very stacked. Both original and adapted screenplay are stacked. I know I said before that adapted is more stacked, and we'll see why. But for original, best original screenplay. So my predictions for who will be nominated is Past Lives, which is penned by Celine Song. The Holdovers, written by David Hemmingson. Anatomy of a Fall, written by Arthur Harari and Justine Triet. May December, which is written by Sammy Birch and Alex Mechanic. And the last spot, Barbie, written by Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. So that's who I think will be nominated. Now, there are a lot of contenders still around that can actually absolutely make a play. So the other dark horse contenders in there is Maestro, which is written by Bradley Cooper and Josh Singer. Saltburn, written by Emerald Fennell. Air, written by Alex Convery. Rustin, written by Julian Brees and Dustin Lance Black. And finally, Asteroid City, which is written by Wes Anderson and Roman Coppola. Now, you look at this. I do believe the ones that I think will get nominated at this stage will genuinely get nominated. As for these dark horse ones, Asteroid City, I've noted Asteroid City. It's because Wes Anderson has 3 screenplay nominations for his entire filmography, and he's yet to pick up a win. He is an Academy darling. I think the Academy really do like him, his style and his films. I think if Asteroid City is going to pop at the Oscars, it's going to be for this one. Rustin, getting very well reception right now. It covers quite a prominent figure and just a really inspirational, wholesome kind of a story. Ear, I Ear is one where I think it could go either way. I don't know how much presence it will take, but yeah, it was really well received. We got to see where the momentum carries it, but I think its screenplay one can be really strong there. I think Air is going to have to rely on, powerful monologues throughout the film that are really sharply written. Now, these two other ones, Saltburn and Maestro, I think they stand the best chance of, having an upset in terms of who I think will be nominated. Saltburn, we saw the rating for it was actually rotten. Um, yeah, it was rotten when the reviews first dropped, and it has actually improved. It's at 82% now, so it's going up quite a lot, and it's at 8.5 out of 10 average rating. That's very high. So there's some weird disparity going on with the reviews, and I think the critics are really loving it. Are really, really loving it. I worded that one weirdly, but the critics that like it love it. That's why the average rating is so high. Maestro is also getting really great reviews as well. But these two don't. With Maestro, it is based on real people. And the Academy in the original screenplay category, they prefer, all these original characters and ideas and stories and stuff like that. So I think they'll give it won't stand much of a chance for a win, but the nomination is definitely there if the movie's getting a ton of momentum. I think Past Lives is the one that's going to be the one to beat for this, honestly. For those that have seen it, it's beautiful, it's human, it's raw. It deals with, it deals with real human emotions. And a lot of movies these days, the emotional sides of them they're very manufactured. They're very designed to evoke emotion from you, basically manipulating your emotions. And that's all well and good. At times, obviously, it depends on how it's done, but it is good when they do that because we want an emotional experience with our films. But Past Lives does it such an organic way, and it's never feels forced in what it's doing. It's just it just does it very well. The other ones that I think could play strongly is The Holdovers. That one feels almost like Manchester of the Sea-esque, if you know what I mean. The really strong screenplay and the really strong performances, that's where it's going to have its big presence at the Oscars. Obviously, something like May December, we got to see where the momentum is. But as far as screenplay goes, I think it's my favorite screenplay of the year so far. I think it's exceptionally well written. Barbie is the kind of, dark horse. I could feel that being not making the nominations at all, and I could see it winning. It's a very weird one and tough one to judge. I think we're gonna have to rely on how the Academy view it in terms of it's not original enough, so I'm not going to vote for it, kind of thing. But yeah, those are the predicted nominations at this time. Now, the adapted ones. So, the adapted ones. Obviously, Barbie's not here anymore, and I had initially written this article with Barbie being in the adapted version. So that was quite disappointing. But this category is just stacked, honestly. So for my predicted nominations at this time, I got Oppenheimer by Christopher Nolan, Poor Things, written by Tony Namara, All of Us Strangers by Andrew Haig, Killers of the Flower Moon by Eric Roth and Martin Scorsese, and The Zone of Interest by Jonathan Glazer. Now, we look at the other contenders that we need to watch for this category as well, because while it's stacked in that top 5 scenes are almost a lock at this point, there are some that could really sneak in here. So the other ones to look out for: Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. That's written by Phil Lord, Christopher Miller, and Dave Callahan. The Color Purple by Marcus Gardley, Priscilla by Sofia Coppola, The Killer by Andrew Kevin Walker, and Origin by Ava DuVernay. So yeah, that's where we're sitting at right now. Now we look at our top 5 contenders there, the ones that are predicted to be nominated. Oppenheimer, I think we can all safely say that. We can all agree here on this podcast that Oppenheimer will get the nomination and will get the win for this. Oh, no, sorry. Ahead of myself there. We'll get the nomination. I don't know about the win, but I think it stands a good chance of getting the win as well. Now, its main competition, I would say, is Poor Things and Killers of the Flower Moon. Poor Things is surprising. I did not think it would be this well received, and I didn't think it would be as big of a player as it is at the Oscars, because it's looking to be pretty big. So this movie has 50 reviews right now. It's sitting at 98%, and the average rating is 9.3, which is it's really, really high. So it is based on a 1992 novel, and the concept allows for a lot of big ideas and themes to come into it. And I think that's really what a lot of the reception coming from those reviews is saying. So Poor Things stands a good chance at even taking the win. I know it will get nominated, but I think it may take the win as well. But then it's also got Killers of the Flower Moon. You know, it's Martin Scorsese. Eric Roth has done some great stuff in the past. So I think it's just going to be really strong. You know, Scorsese himself, he has 2 previous Oscar nominations in writing, and it's generated, a lot of buzz already. So, yeah. Now, I think a dark horse to get a win, and that's right, I mean at the time, a win, is The Zone of Interest. I think this one's slowly starting to build up its buzz, and not many people have heard of it until these last couple of weeks. But The Zone of Interest is, from what I've heard, it sounds amazing, like genuinely really good. So that movie's at 94%. It has 72 reviews, and it's sitting at a 9 average rating. So sure, it's not as high as Poor Things, but it is doing really well. And when I look at what the film's about, I can see the potential in here. So I've heard the film's very thought-provoking. As the film, it navigates the perspective of concentration commander Rudolf Hoss, and he's the commander of the biggest concentration camp during World War II. And it's about him and his wife trying to achieve the dream life with his family in their home and garden, which is next to the concentration camp. So it's really focusing on that kind of perspective of it, something we haven't really quite seen too much of in film. But with Jonathan Glazer's film here, it's going to be tackling quite delicate themes, and if the script can challenge us without glorifying it, it does make it kind of a dark horse. It makes it a true a true dark horse contender where it could come out and get the win. If it can get the momentum that previous films in the past have, I think this could be the one to really take it away. And I speak more broadly about this now, about the Zone of Interest. I'm not just applying it to adapted screenplay here. I'm talking more broadly. I think in terms of the overall film, if it can get the right momentum, I think it could be, a Best Picture potential winner there. But yeah, we're going to do more of these Oscar predictions on here. I am still checking it off through our articles on MovieGainz.com. Be sure to check them out. Jump on the website every few days or so. We always have new content dropping off down there. But yeah, we'll also cover it here on the podcast. I can talk a little bit more in depth, and I can provide more of a rationale and discussion about it with you guys. So yeah, I want to know if you guys agree with it. It's looking to be a very interesting year. I'm very, very excited to see exactly how it turns out and which films are really the big players for this year. But anyway, guys, my voice is done. You may hear a little bit of a croakiness from me now because I'm at the 55-minute mark and I'm toast. So I'm going to go rest my voice after this. But thank you so much for tuning in to me. I hope, just because it's me, I didn't bore you too much. Hope you enjoyed things. Thank you again for tuning in. You guys' support and engagement does mean a lot to us. If you did like what you heard today, follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Consider giving us a 5-star rating if you believe we deserve it. So also, you want to stay connected to us, jump onto Twitter and YouTube as well. But before we say goodbye, we do want to hear your thoughts. Did you agree with everything today? Did you agree with the predictions? Are you excited for Aquaman? Whatever it is, whatever you thought, head on over to us on Twitter, flick us a message there, and we're going to have a chat. We're also available on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, all the social medias as well. So you can also flick us a message there as well. Head over to MovieGainz.com, sign up to our weekly email newsletter to stay up to date with everything that we do. So yeah, awesome guys. Thank you again for joining me. I'll catch you next time. Keep bringing the hype. Peace.